So today I'm going to talk about SIBO and SIBO symptoms. So SIBO symptoms can include many different symptoms, and some of them are not so obvious, and I'll talk about those later in the video. But the common symptoms of SIBO that people kind of might think about as being fairly obvious are non-specific, and they include gas, bloating, abdominal distension, abdominal pain or discomfort, diarrhea, fatigue and weakness. So first of all, what is SIBO? SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So basically that is a condition where there are bacteria in the small intestine that shouldn't be there. So the large intestine is 6 foot long, and a healthy large intestine should contain a huge variety of bacteria, and that's perfect and perfectly normal. The small intestine is 24 foot long. It's also supposed to contain different species of bacteria, different from the large intestine, and a smaller number of bacteria. But with SIBO, what happens is that the small intestine becomes filled with bacteria that aren't supposed to be there. And so you end up with 30 feet containing of intestine containing trillions of bacteria that are then multiplying and dying off at a really rapid rate, because the bacteria lifespan is anything from a few minutes to a few hours. And so as the bacteria are dying, they create endotoxins, which are then go through the wall of the small intestine into the bloodstream and cause inflammation, which then in turn causes disease and other problems. So what causes SIBO? In a healthy gut, bacteria is supposed to be passed through the digestive tract along with food to the colon. So in a healthy stomach, in your stomach, a healthy amount of stomach acid will kill most foodborne pathogens and most bacteria that are coming in with food or drink. But if you're lacking in stomach acid for any reason, whether that be due to disease state or due to medication, then some bacteria can get through the stomach into the small intestine. Now there can also be bacteria that comes up from the large intestine into the small intestine if there is issues with the ileocecal valve. So the ileocecal valve is a small valve that is supposed to close when food is passed through from the small intestine to the large intestine. It's supposed to close up again. If there's something that's not working correctly there, if there's a bit of scarring or something that's a bit dodgy there, then the bacteria can get back up into the small intestine and start growing in the small intestine. The process of food going through can be disrupted by different risk factors. So there can be damaged nerves or muscles in the gut, which results in leftover bacteria in the small intestine, as I mentioned before. Diabetes and scleroderma can both affect the muscles in the gut and leave room for SIBO to develop. There can be physical obstructions in the gut, so there can be scarring from surgeries, or Crohn's disease or diverticulitis, which are tiny pouches that form in the wall of the intestine, and bacteria can get trapped in there and then stay there and start breeding or multiplying. And medications also can influence and disrupt the normal gut flora. These include antibiotics, of course, but also non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Now, a lot of people don't realise that NSAIDs, so this is drugs like ibuprofen and Nurofen, those sorts of drugs, they do a lot of damage to the gut flora, as bad as antibiotics, potentially worse. Also acid blocking drugs and steroids can also cause problems, and then a diet high in sugar and refined carbohydrate, alcohol as well, and other high carb foods can all cause a problem, because the bacteria that are living in the small intestine that shouldn't be there are feeding on those carbohydrates, and they really like that sugar and wheat and all of that sort of thing, and alcohol. So I've been listening to Dr. William Davis. He's the author of Wheat Belly. It's a well-known book that was written a few years ago. He estimates that at least 50% of the population have SIBO. This is in Western countries. And that includes 80 to 90% of all IBS diarrhea sufferers, and probably close to 100% at his estimation of people with fibromyalgia. So SIBO is so common with IBS diarrhea that digestion experts are actually debating about getting rid of the IBS diarrhea diagnosis and just calling it what it is, which is SIBO. So even those without obvious gut symptoms can have SIBO. So you don't necessarily have to have obvious gut symptoms to have something going on in that small intestine. Constipation can also be a problem with SIBO. It's less common, but it can be a problem, or it's thought to be less common. But yeah, definitely can be a problem. And if you have any food intolerances, you should be thinking SIBO, because food intolerances are really common with SIBO. So SIBO is a common cause of leaky gut, and leaky gut basically means that the junctures in the small intestine are moving apart and leaving spaces. So the small intestine is supposed to be somewhat permeable, because that's where the nutrition from your food is taken through into the bloodstream. But what happens in leaky gut is that more and more particles of foods that you're eating are escaping into the bloodstream, bigger particles that shouldn't be going through. Your immune system then sees those and sends out inflammation because it's seeing the food particles as invaders. So many food particles are then flooding into the bloodstream, and they can look like your body's own tissues. So your immune system creates antibodies against those substances, and which then mistakenly attack your tissues, because the protein in the food looks like the protein in your body. And so it attacks your tissues in a phenomenon called molecular mimicry. And then that creates autoimmune diseases and other conditions. So SIBO also contributes to vitamin and mineral deficiencies because of the lack of digestion. SIBO also is also associated with diseases such as fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, and neuromuscular disorders. And it causes like skin problems like rosacea and skin rashes, because damage to the gut lining then leads to the release of cytokines and basically causes skin inflammation. So there are different types of SIBO. The most common one is hydrogen dominant, and so that means that the bacteria that are overgrowing in there are releasing hydrogen, and so it can be tested through a hydrogen breath test, but most doctors won't send you for one. A lot of them don't know much about SIBO, and so this is a condition that gets ignored a lot and just left to fester. So the hydrogen dominant SIBO is also referred to as diarrhea prone SIBO, because the byproducts of the carbohydrate fermentation are create an osmosis-like effect and draw water into the bowel and cause diarrhea. So the hydrogen SIBO can cause damage to the gut mucosal lining and create lactase deficiencies. So that can cause intolerance to dairy products, because lactase is the enzyme that we use to break down and digest lactose. So this is another reason why sudden food intolerances are a sign of underlying gut infection. The other form of SIBO is methane SIBO, and that more often causes constipation. So as I said, the causes of SIBO are can be ileocecal valve scarring or problems, and bacteria coming up from the colon. Can also be caused by stomach acid inhibiting drugs. So like, for example, I was taking a drug called Tagamet years ago for 2 years, and that was an acid inhibiting drug, and I suspect that helped to set me up for SIBO. And also a history of using a lot of antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They can contribute to SIBO, and also small intestinal fungal overgrowth, so SIFO, SIFO. Or restless leg syndrome can also be a symptom of SIBO, and for those who are overweight or obese, there's basically a 50% chance of having SIBO. Diabetes is the same. and neurodegenerative conditions can also be a contributor, have SIBO as a contributing factor, and SIFO as well. So other symptoms of diseases that can be caused by SIBO are things like histamine intolerance. So this is how I've ended up down this track of looking into SIBO, was because I realised that I have histamine issues, have had for years and didn't know it. And it's only been since I've been on the carnivore diet that it kind of really came to the fore, and I ended up all covered in this histamine rash. And then when I started looking into it, I realised that I've probably had problems with histamine intolerance for a very long time. And then now digging into the SIBO side of things, I think I've probably had SIBO for a very long time as well. Food intolerances, as I said, are a symptom. IBS diarrhea is a symptom of SIBO. Pale coloured stools and fat malabsorption are both symptoms of SIBO as well. And liver and gallbladder issues, autoimmune diseases, which includes things like rheumatoid arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, autoimmune thyroid disease. Headaches and migraines can be caused by SIBO and histamine intolerance, attributed, like connected in there, even if there aren't obvious histamine symptoms. Headache and migraine can be a symptom of that. Anxiety, depression, mood disorders, mental illness, hormonal issues, PMS, menopause symptoms, all the symptoms of histamine. So I've actually got a video on histamine intolerance, so I'll link to that below this video as well. And having SIBO and therefore leaky gut and all of the stuff going on in the digestive system can also leave you more open to oxalate issues as well, because the digestive system isn't working properly, and oxalate can get into the bloodstream more easily through the gut, the leaky gut. So this is all connected. These are not separate issues. So it's a mistake to think of the different symptoms that you've got going on as being separate things, because our body is one organism, and the digestive system is the center of that. If your digestive system isn't healthy, other things aren't going to work properly, and that's just the way it is. So it is all very much connected. Uncorrected SIBO can have huge health consequences, and it can be difficult to correct, even with strategies provided by doctors and medical practitioners. So my feeling is that carnivore is part of the solution for success, due to the fact that there has low or no carbohydrate, and helps to correct the overgrowth of the bacteria. And so there are other ways to help to correct that overgrowth as well. As I've been learning, I've been gradually working on that over the last few weeks, and I started with taking berberine about 5 or 6 weeks ago. I have now stopped at the moment. I've had a lot of issues with what I think is die-off while I've been taking that, but I'm also now, because I've been listening to Dr. William Davis, he's the author of Wheat Belly, as I mentioned earlier, and also Super Gut. I will link to the Super Gut book below. I've started using L2 bacteria or 3 bacteria actually that he suggests, L. reuteri, L. gasseri, and also Bacillus coagulans. And I have started making fermented dairy with those bacteria, which is proving to be a little bit tricky, but I'm getting there. And so these yogurts, you can't really call it yogurt because they're different bacteria, but they look like yogurt. They require a 36-hour ferment at specific temperatures. So I've actually bought a yogurt maker to do that. I'll link to that below as well, because I'm really happy with it. And the company that does these yogurt makers also have the bacteria available, the Lactobacillus reuteri and the Lactobacillus coagulans, gasseri, in sachets that you can use to start to make these yogurts. So I will link to those below, and you can go and check those out if you're interested. After listening to Dr. Davis and learning more about these bacteria and about SIBO and everything, what I've realised is that, what I've learned is that even though some of the bacteria and the microbes in the fermented foods might not permanently inhabit your gut forever, after eating them, by eating them, they help to support other bacteria to flourish and grow, the good ones, and help to reduce the bad bacteria. So the Lactobacillus reuteri and the Gasseri in particular, they produce their own antibiotics. So I can't remember what they're called, bacteriocins or something. And so they help to kill off the bad bacteria in your small intestine. And then they encourage they are two bacteria that are supposed to live in the small intestine that a lot of us are actually missing, apparently. But they also help the other bacteria to thrive and survive. So I'm using those. I'm back making kefir with raw milk and having that every day, and I'm back making sauerkraut as well. So I haven't made any sauerkraut for over 2 years, and so I'm back making that, and I've started eating that again as of yesterday, and I'm feeling a difference already, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it's a bit of a process, but I actually really enjoy making fermented foods, and so I've missed it, and I'm quite enjoying doing that again. So more bacteria is best, and so the more variety of fermented foods you can get into your body, the better. So I'll be doing some more videos about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it with the fermented foods. I have a video already on how to make sauerkraut that I made. I've got 2 videos actually on my channel, one from quite a few years ago and then one from about 3 or 4 years ago. I think I made that video. So I'll try and remember to link to those below. And I'll be doing some videos on making the SIBO yogurt and stuff as well. So if you've got any questions or comments, please fire away below. If you've enjoyed this video, like the content, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. I thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.